All right. Hello, buenos días, and buenas tardes. I'm going to start off with saying Happy New Year. I know it's a little bit into the year, but I'm giving myself until January 31st to say Happy New Year. So Happy New Year to all of you. It is so wonderful to kick off 2022 with you all. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Viviana Costa, the Executive Director of HITEC, and I am so excited to welcome all of you for today's session, Making an Impact, Shaping Strong Leaders with Salesforce and HITEC. I want to thank our partners at Salesforce for joining us today and sharing their stories with us. And we'll have you raise your hand if you have any questions. And then after that, we're going to close out with our networking session so that we can continue to stay in touch. So why don't we jump in? So as you know, what HITEC does is push up and pull up its community. So many of you know that use this phrase. So at HITEC, we believe in pushing up and showcasing our leaders, acknowledging their achievements and providing them a platform to inspire others. But we also believe in pulling up, right? And which means helping and creating pathways for those that want to advance and follow in their footsteps. So today we're going to be chatting with a group of Salesforce executives that exemplify this concept. First, you will hear from a Salesforce executive and HITEC 100 awardee that was chosen this past year as one of the 100 most influential Hispanic leaders in tech. And then following the fireside, we're going to be joined by an additional 4 Salesforce leaders who participated in the HITEC Emerging Executive Program, EEP, who will talk about their career journeys, key learnings, and what they learned from the program and what leadership means to them. So before we meet today's presenters, I want to hear from all of you. So if you can put in the chat one thing that you're looking forward to in 2022, go ahead and put it in there. I'm going to start off by saying in 2022, I'm looking forward to, and fingers crossed, to travel again. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What is everybody else looking forward to? Yes, no lockdowns. Love it. All right. What else? Summer in person, yes, and staying healthy, doing more for HITEC, all of that. Concerts, oh my God, I miss concerts so much. All right, beautiful. So there's some exciting stuff coming up. Fingers crossed that everyone gets to accomplish those things. So why don't we jump into our discussion? I'm super excited to introduce our first guest, HITEC 100 awardee, Salesforce Senior Vice President, Ervin Flores. Ervin, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you mind sharing a brief introduction with us?
First of all, thank you, Viviana, for the invite. And excited to be here. I think first of these fire chats I have with HITEC, which is great. Background about myself. So born and raised in Puerto Rico. People that know Puerto Rico, I come from a very, very small town called Juncos. Very humble beginnings. My dad was a barber. My mom was a housewife. And I grew up on an environment which is traditional, Puerto Rican environment. From my education standpoint, I'm an engineer. I have a bachelor's and a master's in mechanical engineering. I thought I was going to be an engineer and design a bunch of things. And if you ask my mom, she thinks I'm still an engineer. She wonders what I'm developing or what exactly I'm doing. So after 27 years, she can't let go of the engineering piece, but that's okay. So I started engineering career in Procter & Gamble. And then at some point I realized that I was not going to be a good engineer. I remember going into a meeting, in the case of companies like Procter & Gamble, you design these products, you go to a meeting, you're presenting everything, all the stuff that you have worked on for months and months, and then a person comes in and says that's all wrong, you need to redo the whole thing. And I asked my boss, who's that person that just came in and destroyed everything we did for the last 6 months? And my boss says, well, that's the brand manager. Companies like P&G are run by the brand manager, like the marketing function. And I'm like, this is wrong. This engineering is not going to work. So shifted my career, started doing brand management with Procter for several years. My last job, I actually ran detergents for Procter. moved into the beer industry, so I was marketing director for Coors. Biggest mistake in my career in my life, and I can talk about that in another instance about working for family companies. And then thanks to that kind of misstep, ended up wanted to do a different career. And I was an engineer, I was doing brand, I had done sales, and Microsoft was hiring. So I joined Microsoft, ran a bunch of things in Latin America for them, opened several offices. I spent 17 years, both Latin America, later in the US, running several offices, including Chicago, and opened an office in St. Louis, and different jobs. And then 2.5 years ago, joined what I think is one of the best companies in the world, which is Salesforce.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ervin. What a fantastic introduction, and what a thorough and background that you have. So thank you for sharing with us. Looking forward to learning a little bit more. So HITEC, we are so proud that we have been able to recognize you as this past year's HITEC 100 awardee, which means being part of the 100 most influential Hispanics in the tech industry. And just to provide a little bit of context about HITEC 100, HITEC 100's core mission is to recognize and highlight and showcase outstanding professionals who have excelled in the technology space, and have also been role models who inspire young people to follow in those footsteps. And in addition, to motivate professionals to continue to excel and help advance the Hispanic community. So Ervin, my question to you is, can you share a bit about how you've done these things throughout your career and been an exemplary HITEC 100 awardee?
First of all, thank you for the recognition. I'll tell you, I'm not much of an award person. I actually, every time I see a lot of awards, and especially I don't like when people in LinkedIn are putting, I'm so humble to have received. And so this one was special because I know what it means. So I'm very thankful to that. And I'm thankful that when I see things like this, I always see them as a tool, as a platform. And when I saw the HITEC 100, the way that it translated for me is, this is the best way of bringing two platforms together. I can use that to get more message inside Salesforce about our communities and the stuff that we can do, so I can recruit more people. That's the way I see the award and how I use it. And I can use the HITEC community to actually talk about what an amazing company we work at, which is Salesforce, and that community sees Salesforce as a place to develop their career. So let me start that. And how to inspire or help people through their development and career. I will say that the main thing is, if you're present, if you believe that the idea of bringing a diverse group of talent, and especially our communities, Latino communities, into better jobs, you become present, you become active on that, because you truly believe that. And I'll tell you, I think that we're miles away in many of our companies that we represent on getting Latinos where they need to be and being represented in the room. We need to be more outspoken, and and people like me need to be an example to say, yeah, these things could be done, and this could be places for careers for everyone. So I think the way I summarize how I have done this is to make sure I'm very active, very present, and I many times very loud on the things that need to happen to make sure we are representing our groups. Interesting enough, somebody asked me one day, but what does it mean to have a diverse environment and being from, let's say, a Hispanic? Why do I need to have a diverse group of Hispanics in my team? And I said, it's not about how we flag something in a tool. It's not about a metric. It's about, let me give you my example. I grew up in Latin America. If you're doing business in Latin America, you develop a different group of skill set. If you are in the 90s running businesses for Microsoft in Latin America, there was an emergency in every country in every other month. So you learn how to do business fast and how to do business with urgency. That's a skill set that brings your upbringing to a company. So I'm very vocal about not what the role of having a diverse, inclusive Latin community within your management team, but what are the examples and behaviors that this group can bring into a diverse group of a leadership team, for example, inside a company.
Absolutely. So what I'm getting, leading by example, key, right? Because if you're not leading by example, then how do people really understand the direction that you want folks to go in? But then this, concept of representation, which leads me to my next question for you. So in addition to your role as SVP, you're also the executive advisor of Latino Force, which is Salesforce's employee resource group for Latinx employees and their allies. So could you share why you decided to join and participate as a leader of Salesforce's ERG, and what is the work that you're currently supporting?
First of all, because it's again another platform to drive impact. Meaning, why I volunteer, why I said I can help this group, is because of my role and how I have the ability to sit in certain meetings and have the ability to actually influence certain decisions by being as part of that allyship group, and by being part of our community within Salesforce. I can hear what are the needs they have. Are they finding a place? Do they find that they have an inclusive place? Do they find that they are being listened when they're talking about the careers aspirations they want? So by sponsoring the group, Latino Force, I'm able to get a lot of insights that I can bring back to the meetings I'm in and influence decisions that could help our community. So that's the reason I did it. And day in and day out, I'm always in the back of in my mind thinking about the insights I'm gathering from that group and how can I influence decisions that are happening day in and day out.
Yeah, super important. Ervin, you mentioned allyship, right? And which I want to kind of just double click on just a little bit more. I understand Salesforce really focuses on creating a company culture of allies. And so why is allyship important as we support and advance the careers of Latinx in tech?
First of all, because it's not easy. Remember, this for somebody from a diverse group to be able to be represented, to be able to be heard, especially when at times the leadership portion of many of these companies are still not representing those groups. It's not an easy step, and there's no like clear guideline on how you do that. By you becoming an ally, you become more than a sponsor. You become more than just a mentor. You actually you are a, what would I say, a super fan of those groups, and you're actually putting skin on the game as an ally. You're like, I'm here with you. Let's talk about what what kind of career aspirations you have. And for example, let's say I'm doing a career panel. I'm sponsoring somebody, or I'm becoming a super fan of somebody within the company. I go the extra mile as an ally. I'm gonna go and send an email to the leader of that group and say, you have this person within your team, and these are some examples on how I give audience, a forum for similar type of employees within my team. By the way, are you aware that this person have these career aspirations? By the way, have you had a skip one-on-one? When was the last time you had a skip one? And these are peers of mine. It could be even somebody in a higher position. And that's my role as an ally. Make sure I am sponsoring their careers. I'm opening doors and supporting, coaching, preparing, they have an interview and they need somebody that they want to do a mock-up interview with before they jump into that interview, you make yourself available to that. So allyship goes beyond being a mentor, being a sponsor. It's almost, think about it, I know maybe it's not the best example, but when you think about somebody going into battle, they look for their allies. And that's the idea of being an ally, being hand to hand, helping through the process and taking that extra step to support that community and those members.
Absolutely. I mean, as you know, here at HITEC, Allyship is one of the topics first and foremost that we talk about. And it's incredibly important that that's integrated in all the work that we're doing, because we need a supportive community to really help us advance and get to where we need to get to, right? So appreciate your insights there. I want to pivot a little bit, and you shared a lot about, your professional journey and your professional growth. If we can just tap into a little bit into your personal growth, and this is kind of where vulnerability sometimes leads to some great insight, right? And so the past couple of years have been unlike any other that we've lived through globally. And so I'm wondering if you could give us just a glimpse into what this past year has been like for you on a personal level, and the challenges that you've faced, but also where you found some hope and moments of inspiration during this time.
Well, let's start with some positive things. 27 years working, I will say every job I had, I was 50% travel, some international travel. In those 27 years, I had my kids, so 2 teenagers now. And I want to say before this pandemic, there was so much that I wasn't aware, and so much I didn't spend enough time with them. So if I look back at these 2 years, one of the most positive things I find was how I was able to be here with them and actually learn a lot more about them. I find that's the biggest gift through all of this. As we think about some of the challenges, first of all, just recognizing how this pandemic impacted so many people. I'll tell you a story. I was with a founder of a group of charter schools in New York, maybe like 6 months ago, and I was having this business discussion about what they learned from the pandemic and how do they operate the school, and I was being very technical and very business oriented. And she paused at some moment and she said, Ervin, yeah, we're having a great discussion, and it's but you realize in this pandemic in our charter schools we lost 100 parents. And that was the moment that I kind of pulled back and say, gosh, we first need to recognize the amount of lives, the amount of jobs, how much this pandemic impacted so many people, and just be humble about it and just be self-aware. From a personal standpoint, it's been difficult. It's mentally draining to get up every day and to be in your same setting and to not connect with people and not to have when is this going to end? So it's been, for me personally, as a business leader, as a people leader, it has taken me to reshape how I approach things, and especially recognize that there's areas that I just don't have. I didn't have all the tools, or I wasn't prepared both emotionally, because you get emotionally tired and even physically tired on this. The second thing is recognize the impact that this had on my teams. And I'll give you an example. I was early in the pandemic, I was having a one-on-one skip level, and I continue I continue hearing noises in the background. So there was, I think there was like a baby in the background. There was something, maybe a dog, and I was starting to get kind of anxious, like I can't have this one-on-one. I don't understand. I can't follow what happened. So I asked the person, "Is everything okay? What's going on?" And this person, what they did is they opened up the camera, and you see that they were living in very small apartment in San Francisco. There were two babies in the room. There were, you know, there were pets, and there were probably a couple that they were both working. So not being aware of how much this was impacting everyone and how impacting their life and how much they needed to, and they needed their job to make it, was another big thing that kind of I reflected through this. And so I think this, I will expect, especially me, after these 2 years, once we get to whatever the new normal is, that we have learned the element of being empathetic, that we are learned, probably the biggest skills I learned is the idea of how self-aware you need to be about yourself and where you are in journey on something like this, but also how aware you are about the people surrounding you, especially in the workplace, and what's impacting their life, and how can you become somebody to support that and just not kind of dismiss it. Be part of helping people as they go through challenges like this.
Thank you, Ervin. I saw a lot of head nodding while you were sharing these stories. I think this resonates so much with everyone. And I think it's a reminder that even those that, you know, publicly are achieving great things, that behind the scenes, there's challenges, right? And that we're all, as a common denominator, we're all facing. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it just helps, it resonates. It helps understand that we're not alone in this space of challenges that we're all, as a community facing. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So as we wrap up, you know, thank you, Ervin, for sharing your insights with us today. I feel like it flew by very quickly, our time together. But I do want to recap a few key things that you mentioned, right? The importance of leading by example, the importance of staying humble, right? The importance of just being aware of who is in your surroundings, who you're working with and working for, and what's going on in their lives, and allyship, and what you termed as being a super fan, right? And the importance of surrounding ourselves and being an ally to others as well. So a lot more that, you know, it's a long list, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us today and being part of this discussion. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Viviana. I really enjoyed it.
Beautiful. Well, why don't we go ahead and pivot into our panel? I am honored to introduce to you 4 incredible leaders from Salesforce who participated in last year's Cornerstone Leadership Program. As many of you know, the Emerging Executive Program. So I am going to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, because no one can represent yourself better than themselves. So why don't we kick off introductions with Antonio. Hello, Antonio.
Someone's a mute. Hello, thank you, Viviana. Thank you. It's great to be here with you all. It's and thank you for the invite. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about HITEC, a great program that I have the privilege to be part of it. And also thanks Salesforce to have included me in this program, which is fantastic. I really got to, I see the faces here, a few folks that I had a long interaction with. Benny, I see you here. We talked so many times. So it's great to see all these folks here. So my name is Antonio Figueiredo. I'm from Brazil. I moved into US in the 90s. My background is in computer science. I was doing research at Sandia National Lab in Albuquerque, then later at the MIT here in Boston area. And then they never let me go. So I'm here. So So I'm a senior director at Salesforce in architecture and strategic projects and engagement with our customers in our customer success group at Salesforce. In my team, we ensure that our largest and most complex customers have successful implementations by working together across different regions and with customers, partners from all industry across different teams and working with different technologies, processes, and enablement to address the challenges and create solutions to meet the needs and vision. So it's a very intensive work. It's very interesting to work with a different culture, different type of companies in different regions, sizes, and so it's very interesting. So, and also we get this opportunity to meet and work with many interesting leaders across the globe. So it's I'm privileged to be here to do this work and work for Salesforce, this great company like Ervin was saying. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction, Antonio. Iliana, why don't we go next to you?
Thank you. Yes, Viviana, thank you very much for that. And thank you for the invitation to participate. Really, really happy to be here and happy to see all the familiar faces from the HITEC program and all familiar faces from Salesforce. So thank you to my colleagues who are here too. Iliana Quinonez, I've been here at Salesforce for about 7 years, but probably what you should know about me is I'm originally from Mexico, actually Mexico City, or DF. For those of you who still call Ciudad de Mexico DF, I still call it DF sometimes. But I've been here for about 24 years in the US, in the Bay Area, all those years, and about 25 plus years in HITEC. So I've done a lot of functional roles. My current role at Salesforce is I lead a team of solution engineers, and we support the manufacturing industry and automotive. And what that means in solution engineering, think about it's the technology arm of the sales team at Salesforce. So we're in the front lines, we're talking to our customers, we're responsible for crafting the solutions that our customers are going to use to solve many of their business challenges and business problems. Before Salesforce, though, I was working for large enterprise companies like SAP, for instance, but I also have experience working for startups. So I've gone through the really high, great experiences of being at a startup that has gone public and IPO and all that, but I've also been at startups that have actually gone belly up and didn't do so well. And of course, small, medium, large companies in tech, but always in customer-facing roles, because I love that. I love the opportunity to be in technology and to explain technology to people. And part of that role also helps me develop other leaders, develop high-performing teams. And the most important part for this audience is to know that I consider myself a big advocate for DE&I, and especially for Latin women, as I should say, as part of my role too. Is we don't have too many women in engineering in general, but female Latinas in tech, it's even more rare. So I'm all up for advancing and helping others, lifting them up. And I think that's one of the great things that the HITEC program has done for us, is really helping us with a platform for visibility and really helping us providing additional tools so that we can do that not just for ourselves, but really having the responsibility of bringing others along the way with us in this journey. So I'm here looking forward to the conversation, and thank you again for the invitation, Viviana and HITEC.
Awesome, thank you, Iliana. I think I'm going to make you one of our official spokespeople for HITEC. Thank you so much. Next up, Lucie, can you share a little bit about yourself? Hello, welcome.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be on this panel with my Salesforce colleagues and to be a member of the HITEC Familia. It is awesome to see some familiar faces from the EAP program here today. So my name is Luciana Simpson. Everybody calls me Lucie for short. I head up customer success for Datorama. It's a part of Salesforce's marketing cloud for both North America and Latin America. I am an immigrant. I came to the United States from Nicaragua. I'm usually the only Nicaraguan on these calls, but I will take any Central Americans that are out there. Please put it in the chat as well. I landed in Miami in the mid-90s and lived there for many years, but I'm now a proud New Yorker, a little bit chilly here today. But I've been working in the enterprise and marketing technology field for about 15 years now. Similar to Iliana, both startups that have done very well and not so well. And I actually came to Salesforce through an acquisition back in mid-2018 that definitely worked out because I've been here ever since. It's a really great company, and I know we'll get into that a little bit more. But I work in the customer success group. So today that means leading an organization of about 70 people that are all geographically distributed across the US and Latin America, especially these days. And really it's across both what we call success management and technical success architect teams. And ultimately our charter is to make sure that our customers are wildly successful with our product so that we can grow together. So thank you guys for having me. It's great to see everybody, and can't wait to chat a little bit more.
I love that term, wildly successful. I'm gonna be using that.
Yeah, it was in the job description. That's my job.
And you've got a few folks, if you've noticed in the chat, you got a few folks that representing Central America. So go ahead and connect there.
I'm so excited. And you know what? My family is Nicaraguan. I lived there, grew up there, but I was actually born in Guatemala, and I see a couple of Guatemala. So I am so excited that you guys joined.
Beautiful. Connections are being made.
Ya no, para nada.
Okay.
All right, so finally we have Aaron. If you can please pop up, where are you, and introduce yourself, that would be amazing. Where are you, Aaron?
Great.
There we go.
Thank you, Viviana, for hosting us today, and just want to echo my colleagues' sentiments. It's proud that we all got to do this amazing program together, and celebrate graduation, which wasn't too long ago, but was an amazing program. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and also thank you to Ervin on his thoughts that he shared earlier. So for those that don't know me, Aaron Sotelo. So my background started with my grandparents, who actually immigrated from Mexico to California many years ago, and I grew up in Southern California, and then got to go to school up in Berkeley and do my undergrad. And coming out of that, started at Deloitte, where I was doing very large customer transformation projects all over the US. And that really brought me into the Salesforce ecosystem, and had been doing that for quite some time. And then about 7 years ago, the opportunity was presented to sort of get off the travel road of management consulting and start to actually live and work in the city of San Francisco. And so I came over to Salesforce and started working in customer success, and was doing customer success for some big high-tech companies here on the West Coast. And my role now today is actually I lead our strategic alliance. I am a senior director in strategic alliances, and I have the privilege of leading one of our largest alliances at Salesforce. And it's super important to kind of the work we do, because we're a software company, and we need our partners to really help implement and make sure that those technologies are actually successful and help drive customer success. Also, our partners in the ecosystem do a really good job of speaking the language of our customers, and it's really critical. And so I get to lead one of those alliances and help drive go-to-market and innovation, and make sure that we're successful with our customers. And so it's a privilege to be able to do that. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our panelists for being here today. So, as you know, the focus of today's session is making an impact and shaping strong leaders, which is, what the Emerging Executive Program is all about, as I'm sure you guys have experienced. So to kind of start off this discussion, from your perspective, how would you define an effective leader? What makes an effective leader? Lucie, would love to start with you on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question and this topic generally. I think a ton of things come to mind, but I'll kind of key in on what I consider two fundamental characteristics of an effective leader. And that's the ability to build trust, and to build trust authentically. And that's a word that is very, very important to us at Salesforce. So I'm sure you'll hear it from a few folks on the panel some more today. So building trust and doing that authentically. And two, to communicate or storytell effectively. I think for me, building trust with your team, your business partners, your leaders, your customers, that's a fundamental task for an effective leader. It creates positive, productive environments, business environments, right? And that's something that we all need, especially these days. And I think communication and being able to effectively storytell is a key part of building trust, right? And it helps bring people with you, right, to where you want to go together. It's really, really critical in every single context, I think, both professionally and personally. So if you think about things like providing feedback or having tough conversations when you're leading groups, right? Managing, effectively communicating to a desired outcome. It's all about trust and communication for me.
Thank you so much. I mean, you definitely mentioned a few things, but I think trust definitely stands out, right? I think it's a foundation to any relationship, right? And especially that of from a professional setting. So thank you so much for sharing that. Iliana, I would love to hear your perspective as well.
Sure. No, thank you, Viviana. And I could not agree with Lucie more in terms of the communication skills and the trust, for sure. I think also when we hear the word effective, at least for me, it also means results, right? The strong leader has to be focused on results as well. If there are no results, you cannot be effective. So that's one thing we always have to keep in mind. But there are other things that are important. I think to Ervin's point from earlier today, the ability to bring people together, to really be effective as a leader, bring people together, communicate a vision, drive for results, right? With everybody on board. So that's a trademark of a leader, bring people together, communicate on a vision, and align people on that path, on that journey. And in order to do that, I think for me, two key things are super important. One is EQ, so emotional intelligence. I think a lot of us have heard about it, maybe read about it. I think it's not a new concept, but I think it's super important. And especially in the past few years, and especially also with the pandemic, I think everybody has been more aware of our own reactions. So we've become more self-aware of our reactions, our emotions, and the impact that these have in other people. I think that's super important, and that has come up to front and center, I think, for me, at least in the past few years, but especially the past couple of years. So I think developing the skills to be more aware of yourself, how the way you react, the way you communicate, and the way those areas have an impact on others, it's very important for a leader to know and to hone in skills around that. And along with that, CQ, which is the other piece that for me is very important, right? So CQ is cultural intelligence. So along with emotional intelligence, I think the ability to work with others across different cultures. And by culture, I don't necessarily mean, I think if we're in Latin America, we think, oh, the Mexicans and the Nicaraguans and the Puerto Ricans and the Brazilians, and it's different cultures. And that is absolutely true. Or if you go and work with Europe, that's a different culture. Japanese culture is very different. So the ability to go across boundaries and really work with all kinds of cultures, that's important. But also bring it down a level or maybe 2 or 3 levels, even if within your own company, just understanding that each team has its own culture. And when you're working, you're not working in silos, we're working with other teams. So as a leader, you need to be very aware that each team has their own culture and your team may have a different culture. So you need to find commonalities and common points of connection and synergies with those other groups. So being very aware that each team, each unit is its own culture, like your family has its own culture too, and being able to cross the boundaries and in a positive way, right? To be able to drive that collaboration, to create that alignment, and then ultimately to drive for results. I think that's something important. And then last but not least, I would say as a leader, to authentically care for others, because they will see right through it. If you're a leader who cares for others, if you care about the people that are with you, that are your business partners, your direct reports, your extended teams, and you truly care about their careers, their personal, their professional growth in an authentic manner, they will see through that and they will be behind you. They will be with you along the way. So I think those things really are top of mind for me.
Those are some great additions to what makes an effective leader. And I think that the idea or the concept of authenticity just kind of resonates everywhere. It just keeps coming up in all of our leadership discussions, that, you know, being authentic is really what kind of opens doors and to building trust, right? Mm-hmm. So definitely important across the board there. Maybe to close out this question, Antonio, would love to hear your thoughts on what it means to be an effective leader.
Sure. Wow, all great points here. A lot already said here. Thank you, Lucie and Iliana. But I'd like just to highlight a key point here that Lucie brought up, which is trust. which trust is foundational, right? If you don't, there is no trust, there is nothing else. So a good leadership, I think, my opinion, starts with trust. So one of the leader's most critical responsibilities is fostering an environment of trust. That's because workplaces, and quite frankly, everything else runs or should be running on trust. Imagine a workplace where the team doesn't trust its leader. It's not healthy or not productive. So who are those leaders? How they can get there? Leaders are mostly made. That means that while there are aspects of leadership that come in more naturally to some people than others, a majority of leadership quality can be developed. I truly believe that. And then you see programs like HITEC, it definitely helps in that direction. So anyone can learn how to be an effective leader. It requires commitment, lots of work, hard work, but I totally believe it's possible. So we see with in our career how you develop ourselves.
Perfect. Thanks, Antonio. And I mean, it's true, right? If leadership couldn't be developed, then Emerging Executive Program maybe wouldn't be what it is. So definitely agree with that statement, that, you know, it's something that you have to work on, that you have to invest in, that you have to commit to continue your growth in your leadership journey. So thank you so much for that. So why don't we move on to the next question, which is, you know, we defined what we think effective leadership is, which you came up with some fantastic factors that play into that. What I want to know now is, can you share what has helped you as an individual become a strong leader? Ervin, I'd love to start with you on this question.
Thanks, Viviana. I think it's a really poignant question. We've all had, have had the privilege of having long and healthy careers. And I think each of us can say that many people have played a role along the way. And for me, it's been the mentors and sponsors that really have helped shape my career and where I'm at today. In fact, it really was a sponsor from my previous employer, Deloitte, that actually allowed me to move into the role today, which is actually lead the Deloitte Alliance for Salesforce. And that came from a direct relationship that I had to sponsor with. HITEC also gives a great talk during our program on really the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, and how you really need both, right? And a mentor is really someone who can give you direct advice, be candid, and really helps you make kind of day-to-day improvements in your job, someone that you can look at and emulate. And really a sponsor is someone who is your champion, who is an advocate, who is a great supporter of you, and who's not afraid to really celebrate your success within the broader organization or over your career. And you really need to have both. What I would say is one of the things when we first started HITEC, and as I thought about how I grow my career as a leader, was really sitting down and doing a relationship map of people that I know that are mentors, but also identifying the people that are sponsors, and making sure that you're keeping in touch with both, I think is really important. But that HITEC talk on really understanding the difference between mentor and sponsor, it really helped kind of zero in on how I had to think about it as I continue to grow my career.
Thanks, Ervin. Absolutely. I mean, we think of mentorship, those are the relationships that are, you're in the room for those conversations. And the sponsorship those are the conversations when you're not in the room, right? When they're advocating for you and for the work that you're doing. So that differentiator is incredibly important. So thank you so much for sharing that. Iliana, what has, I'd love to hear from you on this topic as well.
Yeah, no, Viviana, I think strong leaders, to Antonio's point earlier, are made, or you get to develop, right? A lot of those skill sets. I think for me, one thing that has helped a lot, especially at Salesforce, but also other companies, is that because it's hard work to be a leader, and I think we can all agree on that, it's something that constantly you have to be working at. And if you're Latin, well, probably some could argue that you have to work even double at that. Something that sometimes you need is inspiration, quite frankly. and motivation, right? And I think for me, what has helped me is also seeing role models or finding role models that I can get inspiration from, that I can model after, right? Some of my leadership behaviors. So I think representation matters. If I had to describe in one line what I think has helped me, is really having representation at the top of other Hispanics, other Latin people. I think at Salesforce, we had great executives. Ervin, obviously a great example today, but I think Maria Martinez, who is now at Cisco, CEO of Cisco, Josue Estrada, who's the COO at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Ana Ricio, I can think of, an SVP of Talent at SoFi today. All these people who have been there, done it before us. I think it's an inspiration, it's a motivation, and it's also a way to say, you know what, it is possible. And sometimes when the work gets hard, I think you have to look at those role models and say, you know what, I can do that too. So I think strong leaders do need to find the role models that resonate with them, people that you can actually relate to, that can say, okay, I can see myself in them. That's super important. And then, of course, in the journey of getting there, getting allies, to Aaron's point, right? Find your mentors, get your sponsors, cultivate them, nurture your network, and bring your allies with you. I think Ervin mentioned this earlier too about allies, and it caught my attention when he said, think about your allies like, if you're going to battle, you need your allies, right? They're gonna go to battle with you. They may die in the field with you, or they may have victory with you, but they will be right next to you. So I think that's another super important thing. If you wanna be a strong leader or continue on that journey, you need your allies, you need your community of support. So I'd say role models matter, and your allies matter a lot too.
Absolutely. Like, if you can see it, you can be it, right? It's such a simple concept, but it really is so important to be able to see yourself in those that you aspire to be, or to follow in their footsteps. So super important. And finally, Antonio, how about you? What has made you a strong leader?
Oh, like what Aaron said, and I'm sure with many of you, I think over the years I have had the and obviously still have the privilege to work with so many leaders and mentors that have helped shaped me tremendously in my career and my personal life. So programs like HITEC are great. They provide a good framework and connections to expand your perspective and vision and leverage people. I think we gotta leverage people. There are so many people around us that you should observe them. You should be, make like what Iliana was saying them before, like we need to get them to grow together. So the familia, right? So that's a huge asset we have. It's about people. It's people that you interact with, people that inspire you, people that push you to think outside the box. And I think HITEC definitely contribute to that, and you should take this opportunity. That is something that I recommend to everybody here. So I think a great leader is one who makes those around them better, like Iliana was mentioned. When they encounter those individuals, keep them around, keep them close together. I always have some of those amazing people around me, and all that helps me to continually expand my leadership skills. So we can't live in silos. We need to interact with people. It's so relevant, so important to our career. We don't know everything. We need to be vulnerable. We need to be comfortable in being vulnerable and learn from people.
I love that. And I think that is a perfect segue into my next question, because I think the Emerging Executive Program is all about leveraging people and leveraging your community. So what I want to ask the group is, in your experience of being part of the executive program, and me, I'm an insider, so I feel like I can be very biased. So I'm so excited to hear from all of you, and your perspective is, if you can give us a highlight of some key learnings from your EEP experience. Antonio, I'm gonna give it back to you on this.
Oh, sure. I'm gonna highlight here a few aspects of the mentorship experience that I had with HITEC. I think was fantastic. One of the most important quality in mentor, teacher, or coach is not how much they know. That's not the most important thing. It's how much they care. Care is more than taking pride in your success. It's feeling joy as you progress. So the mentorship program provided by HITEC, and it's all about that. I was fortunate to have as a mentor a fantastic person, Christina Quaron from Bank of America. The interactions and the exchange of collaboration and knowledge were absolutely fantastic with Christina. So she's a great leader and an awesome person. So I really, really enjoy our relationship. I couldn't wait to get to our next meeting. So we had awesome, great conversation and very great interactions. So that's a good example of what you get in a very quality mentorship type of program provided by, for example, HITEC. And in this case, that experience stays with me for a long time, forever. So it was a great experience, and I think a mentorship is something that we need always to have someone, and also have someone to sponsor you as well, like Aaron was mentioned earlier. So those two things are different. So it's the ideal situation that you have both.
Beautiful. Thanks, Antonio. Yeah, and I definitely agree, and it resonates. It's like having a person in your corner that truly cares. It makes all the difference, right? So thank you for sharing that. Iliana, I'd also love to hear from you. What are some of your key learnings from your EEP experience?
Yeah, definitely tons of learnings, Viviana, and I think mentorship is super important, as Antonio said. And maybe I will change my response a little bit, because when I think about the lessons learned, there are a ton of them, and we learn a lot from content, from sessions, networking, and all that. But I think the human factor for me was a key learning experience and a great opportunity that the HITEC program provides. Just being in the room with fellow professionals that share your cultural heritage, right, in different ways, right? We're all Latin professionals, being in the same room, having the same struggles with regards to career development. That was a fantastic way of learning and growing personally and professionally too. So I do want to highlight that component, the networking piece, the building the relationships with people that otherwise would have been probably very hard to get to know. And this was a concentrated, super high quality group of individuals with whom I had a lot of things in common. So an opportunity for learning from them and creating synergies, it's been fantastic. I have to say that, for instance, at the end of the program, so we have our mini group there with Benny, and Benny, I see you there on the screen, Henry Bowles also. We're already talking about how do we keep this conversation alive, right? Even after the end of the program, how do we keep the community, the alumni network going? What can we do for our community in our local geographies, right? And how can we expand it to other people? So I think that component is something that's really hard to get. There are not too many programs out there like that. So kudos to HITEC for doing that, for the platform for visibility too, which is the second thing I wanted to share too. Many of us may be part of development programs at our organizations, right? But having a platform for visibility with a development program tailored to this community, it's something that we really need to leverage. There are not too many of them. So if you can get a part of it and be part of it and get nominated or get sponsored to be part of it, leverage it and really, really hone your skills, but also make sure that you are visible and you're giving that visibility to others in your organization, because platforms like these are really hard to come by, especially when they are high quality content, high quality network, high quality individuals. So I'd like to say those two for me have been two of the great aspects of the program and how they have helped my own career and my own development here at Salesforce too.
Perfect. Thank you, Iliana. Really quickly, I also want to hear from Antonio and then Lucie. Antonio, a few additional thoughts on that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant Aaron. Aaron,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. No problem. It's okay. We both have, we both start with the A's.
My apologies.
That's okay. Yeah, as one of the things that really stood out to me around HITEC was how the overall program kicked off. And, there was a very prominent Latino leader who had come on and spoke about what I identified as, from a Latino culture, the idea that we're all, humble, at least this resonated with me, and not very boastful about our successes. And she gave this really call to action, which was, don't be afraid to be proud. Don't be afraid to be bold. I think be bold. I think I wrote this in my notebook in big bold letters, to celebrate your success, and to not feel bad about doing it. And I think that really resonated with me, because I think throughout my career, I've always taken a very humble approach, and it's good to be humble, but I've also had some successes that maybe I didn't, highlight or should have, that, felt unnatural just from, my cultural upbringing and how I had felt. And I thought it was a really good call to action that kicked off the program in the right way, is that we're all here, we're all leaders, and we deserve to be here. And we should really celebrate the fact that we are here and what we've done and what we're going to continue to do in our career. And so that talk really kind of set the stage for me throughout the rest of the program that stood out.
I love that. Thank you, Ervin. So we are close to time. I want to just close out with one more question. I'm going to have Lucie and then maybe back to you, Ervin, to answer it, which is, in your personal experience, why is Salesforce a good company to be a part of from an equality perspective? Lucie, I'd love to start with you on this question.
Yeah, I think, we've said it countless times through all of the different questions, right? This idea of trust being foundational for everything. And I think the way that shows up at Salesforce is in a million little ways, from the very top and then all across the organization. But I think that culture of being an active listener, right, across your organization, again, coming from the very, very top of the company. And then more importantly, being open to listen and learn, right, and ask questions and be humble about what you may not understand, what you may not know, what we may not be doing enough of, what we should do better, and then taking action on it. I think that's another thing within Salesforce culture, is we are extremely action oriented, and it's great to see that, right, and to be a part of that from a professional perspective, because there's so much going on in our world, right? I mean, like, let's not even talk about COVID. There's just so much more going on around social justice issues, climate issues, and it is imperative for businesses to be a part of that change, right? It's such a huge part of every single human's time and life. And I think to work at a company that really understands that and internalizes that and lives it and sees it and is proud of that, but is also humble about it, right? Because we're not there yet, and it's a goal that we're always chasing and that we can always be better at. That culture really permeates every single level, like I said, of the company. And I think from an equality perspective, that's super, super important, especially when we talk about things like Latino representation and female representation in tech. It's definitely a big part of my choice to work at Salesforce and to grow here.
Love it. Thanks, Lucie. I'm going to close out this question with Ervin. Would love your final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Salesforce that makes me really proud to work for this company is that we walk the talk. And Salesforce likes to lead from the front, and it starts from the top. Mark often says the business of business is really making the world a better place. And the things that we prioritize as a company and what we do really speak to that. I think a couple of examples that stand out is, equal pay for women. Mark went out on 60 Minutes, I think it was 2 years ago, and said, we need to do a better job because we're not doing a good job. And, put the company on notice that we actually needed to do something about it. Salesforce has our 111 program, which is, 1% of our time, 1% of our revenues, and 1% of our software we give away to nonprofits. And it's a program that's been adopted by a broader set of companies, within the community. And and then recently, just paying more attention to, underrepresented minorities and the URM, and we're actually looking at our recruiting practices and how we're bringing in folks and making sure that we have a very diverse workplace, because diversity is really important to ability for us to make our customers successful and drive success in our communities. And we've put in programs like inclusive hiring that looks at how do we find candidates, what are some biases that we may bring into that process, and how do we learn how to recognize those and make sure that we're widening our aperture in terms of candidates who could come into Salesforce. And so I just think that it's not just talk, it's action. And I think I'm really proud of the steps that we're taking and that we continue to take to really make the world a better place.
Awesome. Thank you, Ervin. That was a fantastic way to close out today's session. This has been such a robust conversation. I just want to thank you all for participating. There's an endless list of gems of insight here that the list is quite long for me to list, but just want to thank all of you for participating again today, from Ervin, Aaron, Iliana, Lucie, and Antonio. Thank you so much. And I also want to shout out to Amy for helping us put this session together. It's been phenomenal. I wish we had more time, but we will have a little bit more time for those that want to stick around for our networking session. We can continue this conversation. But again, I just want to thank the Salesforce team for participating, for really sharing their journeys from a leadership standpoint, but also from a professional development standpoint as well. So thank you all so much for joining us. And if you want to stick around and continue the convo, please do. But if not, happy Friday and enjoy your weekend. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
And if you want to, I'm so sorry, if you want to stay connected and learn a little